When we were younger, we were told of the history of very important historical figures in Nigeria. People like Jaja of Opobo, Nana of Ishekiri, Ovorawen Ogbaisi, Efusheton Aniwura. We were told of Queen Amina in northern Nigeria, King Kosoko of Isale Iko. We were told of Efunroye Tinubu, popularly known as Madam Tinubu, not a predecessor of the current president of Nigeria, by the way, and many more key historical figures like that. Many of these people were victims of British imperialism. We were told of these stories when we were as young as primary school pupils. Very major amongst these historical figures was the famous King Jaja of Opobo. And this very important video is about the story of Jaja of Opobo. Who was this man and what exactly happened to him? What did the British do to him? This was what happened. In the late 1880s, English businessmen wanted to do business in West Africa without the use of African intermediaries. You see, Nigeria has always been blessed with oil. But this same oil, instead of being a great blessing, has attracted so many tragedies to us. So it has become a curse. Today, the bane of our existence is the crude oil. In the pre-colonial days, it was the palm oil. Eastern Nigeria has always been very blessed with palm oil. And one of the very great merchants of that business in those days was Jaja of Opobo. How did this come to be? His name was, oh, I hope I did not murder this name. And if I do, please pardon me. Mbanaso Okwara Ozurumba. He was born around 1821 at Umuduruoha village in Amaigbo, a place which later became part of Imo State in the Igbo-speaking southeast of modern Nigeria today. Mbanaso was kidnapped when he was only 12 years old, and he was sold as a slave to Chief Allison of Bonny. Now, Mbanaso was a very stubborn boy, very headstrong, and in no time, this Chief Allison became tired of him. He became irritated of the boy, and then he gave him away to a particular Chief Madu. Chief Madu died in the year 1833, and his son, Alali, succeeded him, who also died in the year 1861. Now, there was a leadership vacuum after his death. Alali had incurred a lot of serious debts to the British businessmen before he died, so many people were reluctant to succeed him. So they chose this stubborn Mbanaso to succeed Alali. Maybe because they wanted to see him punished or disgraced, because this was a position many people were reluctant to fit into. Now, this Mbanaso was a very charismatic guy, very eloquent, articulate, very hardworking, enterprising, and he was known for honesty. He was so focused and industrious that in no time, he paid off the debt of Alali, and the people started according to him some respect. The guy was a very intelligent guy, and he comported himself with dignity. But how did Mbanaso got to be called Jaja? Mbanaso, when he became a respectable figure, was given the honorific name of Jubo Juboga, and his kinsmen shortened it to Jojo. The Europeans pronounced this Jojo as Jaja, and that gained popularity. Jaja established himself as a wealthy trader and middleman who acted as an intermediary between European traders in the coastal areas of the Niger Delta and native palm oil producers inland. Now, this is where things got more interesting. In 1869, he went to war with his rivals in Bonny. He won this war and secured his independence, and he seceded from Bonny to Opobo, taking along with him 14 of the 18 native chiefs of Bonny. As a result of this, the king of Bonny became one of his greatest arch-enemies. In the year 1873, Jaja of Opobo signed a treaty with the British consul for the Bights of Biafra and Benin, the man Charles Livingstone. This treaty recognized Jaja as the new king of a new kingdom called Opobo, independent of Bonny. Jaja then became a strong, formidable businessman and also a political authority, like we would say today, a billionaire with political power. Jaja of Opobo was a force to be reckoned with. Now, the game of the British is always very predictable. What they simply did was to exploit the rivalry between Jaja of Opobo and the King of Bonny, and they started doing that insidiously. Harmful, yes, but gradually, unnoticeably. They simply gave both sides the impression that they could gain military superiority over the other by giving out men to the British to train for them as military men. This was how the British got to use Bonny and Opobo warriors to conquer the Ghanaians in the Ashanti War. And in 1875, Queen Victoria awarded Jaja a sword of honor in recognition of his services during the war. He became so influential that the British relied on him to mediate their disputes with different ethnic groups. At this time, Jaja of Opobo made nothing less than £50,000 annually. That was huge. However, Jaja's commercial acumen and wealth gained him a lot of enemies locally and even amongst the British businessmen. His position as the middleman meant that the British would have to go through him before they could get palm oil. They had to submit to his own terms. They had to follow his own rules. He had monopolized the business. And this meant that the British had to pay him dash regularly. Dash was a form of settlement or maybe bribery, but official bribery that must be made before business can be made. And the British, if they must do business in Opobo, had to pay dash to Jaja, and they had to do business in Opobo. This irritated some British businessmen. They decided that they weren't going to do the business in accordance with Jaja's rule. And what did Jaja do? He circumvented them and simply shipped to Britain directly. Even the British Foreign Office had to write about Jaja that Jaja was the ablest of the coast middlemen. They said he was a man of energy and considerable ability. Jaja demonstrated these qualities in the year 1884 when he negotiated a treaty with the British consul Edward Hyde Hewitt. This proposed treaty presented to Jaja would supposedly grant British merchants the exclusive right to trade in areas under Jaja's jurisdiction and allow the missionaries to proselytize freely in exchange for those areas being placed under British protection. Jaja was not a foolish man. He told Hewitt that, "Me, I no buko. This protection, explain it properly. What does it mean?" He made Hewitt to put in writing that under no circumstances would that term protection be used as an excuse or a pretext to take over his kingdom or his business. And this was done. But something happened in the years 1884 and 1885 that has forever shaped and affected the future of everywhere that is called Africa today. This very tragic event, tragic for us, but very fortuitous for the British or for the Europeans, was the Berlin Conference. This Berlin Conference put the area where Opobo is located under the jurisdiction or the protection of the British. Britain now owned Opobo and everything that is in it. So Jaja's British enemies now had the perfect pretext to remove Jaja, claiming that the Berlin Conference was superior to any treaty he had signed before then. My good brothers and sisters, Naso Kasala Bosto. In January 1887, Hewitt ordered British traders to stop paying dash to Jaja. Jaja sent letters of protest to the Prime Minister in which he pointed out that Hewitt continued to allow all other chiefs in the area to receive their dash, and this same Hewitt had threatened to exile him. In this same year, 1887, Hewitt went home to Britain on a sick leave, and the young, impatient, and brash Harry Johnston deputized for him as acting consul. Now, this Johnston did not like Jaja, and he did not even bother to pretend. Johnston far preferred the King of Bonny, George Pepple, to Jaja of Opobo. The King of Bonny, according to him, was a more civilized man. He had converted to Christianity. He dressed like Englishmen. He tried to speak English. But Jaja, on the other hand, was a very crude black monkey. He had refused to convert to Christianity. He didn't bother speaking proper good English. He chose to dress like uncivilized black natives instead of the civilized English ways of dressing. And on top of it all, Jaja considered Johnston too small, too little for him to deal with directly. Johnston was just a 29-year-old boy. Jaja was an elderly man, so he told Johnston that, "I will talk to your father when he returns." By father, he was of course referring to Hewett. To cut the whole very long story short, Johnston dealt with Jaja severely. He dealt that poor old man a big blow. Johnston decided to kidnap Jaja and to exile him out of his own kingdom. He did this without even being approved first by the British Home Government. He went against the British colonial head office in order to deal with this proud black monkey. On September 19, 1887, Jaja was invited to a meeting. Jaja was scared to attend this meeting, and so he made them promise him that they would do him no harm. And they promised him, waiting there, no be to promise. But the moment Jaja got there, he was arrested and locked up. Johnston gave Jaja two choices: to surrender immediately and go to Accra in the Gold Coast to face trial, or to decline to surrender and be declared an outlaw with a bounty placed on his head for his capture. Johnston gave him 1 hour to decide. The charges brought before him were very ludicrous, highly ridiculous. It was as though they were putting him on trial for doing the very things the treaties he signed gave him the authority to do. But power had shifted hands, and Jaja was found guilty on 3 counts. Jaja, an influential, wealthy, important king of a kingdom, was exiled to the West Indian island of St. Vincent, and he was to be given a stipend of £800 per year to be paid from his own savings. While in exile, of course, as expected, Jaja succumbed to depression, to illness and homesickness. He begged the British government to please return him to his home, that he may die on his own soil instead of dying on a foreign land. These kind of things did not make much sense to the white man, but they eventually decided to indulge him on the condition that when he returned to Opobo, he would become a private individual and would not foment any form of disturbance to the British government at all. Jaja agreed to these terms. And in July 1891, while he was being shipped back to Opobo, Jaja mysteriously died. Of course, we all know that he was poisoned, but the British said he died out of depression. That, my good brothers and sisters, is the very tragic story of King Jaja of Opobo, one of the very influential figures of pre-colonial Africa. This story is based upon the different accounts that I encountered on several books. I have listed them for you in the description of this video. Similar in nature to this story of Jaja of Opobo is the story of King Ovoawen Nogbaisi of Benin. I have done a video like this for that history also, and the link to that video have also been provided in the description of this one. Do you also want to know the story of the great woman Alimotu Pelewura and Fumilayo Ransom Kuti? Find in the description of this video the links to the videos I have done about them. Thank you very much for watching the video to this point. Please continue supporting by sharing this video aggressively, and never forget to subscribe and turn on your post notifications. I remain yours truly, Wahashiri.